Side, of course, for Hong Kong Attitude, that's Talia Kalista off the board.
Yep, straight in. Of course, there's a lot of passion on the analyst desk, but now we get to watch it all happen firsthand through Champion Select. The big things that we have to look towards are YutoriMoyasi up against Unified. That's the place that seems to be the most hyped, where a lot of the early aggression is going to be seen. But first things first, picking champs.
Oh yeah, well, banning champs first off, of course. That Cho'Gath goes away. We won't get to see anything like what we were seeing out of Mantarraya last time around, and Rampage, they'll get their first pick off. Do they want to go towards the AD carry, or do they go elsewhere on the map?
I mean, you could look towards it. Once again, the Tristana is something that stands to attention, but as is the Xayah, so you'd say priority there is, I mean, you could go towards it. Evidently, they're not going to, but you could also pick another role knowing that they're still 2 up.
Yeah, so Sejuani continuing to show a lot of favor on these teams here in Group C and D. Now over on the Hong Kong Attitude side, they pick up the Lovers bot lane. Xayah Rakan paired together.
I mean, we're 2 picks into Champion Select, and I'm already tempted to side with Team Mark Z at the moment. They've got the duo bottom lane, they've got the Xayah Rakan, but again, to contrast that, Tristana Alistar is always going to be a very much valid 2v2 to respond with. We also saw a Tristana Lulu quite successful in the previous game, so there's always that possibility if you want to try and push them around.
Very bullying lane, and yeah, you don't necessarily have to have yourself another tank when you've already got Sejuani. We see how well she's able to stick to targets moving into those fights, but of course, also even on some ganks, it comes out pretty effective. Rampage taking their time on the clock here, deciding if they want to fill it out with support or pick something else up. It's going to be the Maokai locked in, though.
They're locking themselves the top laner, so they've got 2 big tanks now running around on Summoner's Rift, and a Tristana so far as the 3 of their 5. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the makings of a very strong team composition that can enable YutoriMoyasi to put in that extra work. Dara has a lot of champions in his repertoire, may not be concerned that there's 2 more bans coming at him.
Yeah. Able to rely on the fact that he has a champion ocean of his own. Hong Kong Attitude, maybe get their final lock-in of the first phase. It's Jarvan as we enter the next bans, and we already start seeing the supports being hit. Brom's off the board.
Yeah, Brom taken away immediately. The J4 that has been locked in, however, HKA LMS, very much an inspired region. I really do enjoy watching their team compositions and their drafting. They do have some fantastic drafts, and as far as J4 is concerned, it's a flex 3rd, so we'll go with that one. It's a very clever decision.
Yeah. Well, Hong Kong Attitude, you know, a lot of the MLS analysts we talked to heading into Worlds give these guys the edge in drafting, talking about how effective they are, and you know, that's pretty big props for a team that was honestly in their own region 6 up until they were able to qualify all the way through the regional qualifier into Worlds.
Yeah, now we've got a Rumble and a Corki band away from Hong Kong Attitude, getting rid of some specific champions. Once again, it looks like GodKwai is going to be the Jarvan if Rampage have any say in this with their current bans. But on the other side, they got rid of a Janna
from
from
support
Rampage.
bans. Yeah, and it's going to prompt, of course, the Syndra gets locked in for mission, so there's a lot of damage on the HKA side. We'll see what Rampage decides to answer with and what Dara eventually grabs for his support.
But ultimately, Janna can still be Lulu, right? If they want to pick something that has all of the shields there. Even this champion of Orianna that is currently being hovered, you'd expect locked in. Another added shield. Again, reminiscent to the composition we saw in the previous game that was successful about protecting that Tristana and having 2 carries.
Mm-hmm. Big ball delivery systems as well between the Maokai and the Sejuani. Well, you don't necessarily need the Lulu if you've got a Soraka, and that's locked in for Dara.
Yeah, it is. That's a Soraka, Pyra. That's a. All right, they've locked themselves in.
I wasn't expecting it, I'll admit.
They've got the healer. They've got a lot of heals that will be happening in the bottom lane. Braum and Janna removed from Dara, and he goes a bit more abstract. I guess for what it's worth, because you heal somebody, you can still build Ardent Sensor, so ultimately things will be okay. But the other big win might well be that Silence Field. Something that could do wonders against a champion like Xayah, something that can perhaps prevent a Jarvan from even getting out of his own ultimate. Things like that can be invaluable.
Yeah, some shenanigans at the very least, and you know, not to mention it's also going to be very effective against the Syndra, so this could be the secret weapon here for Rampage, not minding that there's so many support bans thrown their way. We'll see if it ends up working out. I like that you harken back to what Chaos Latin Gamers did in the previous game, Rampage maybe taking a leaf out of their book, and well, a few different leaves as the Maokai's up in the top side, of course, and Riris going to match the tankiness pound for pound with the Galio.
Yeah, there are some similarities on the opposite side here of HKA, but there are definitely some differences. You know, the Syndra's the same. You've got the Xayah composition, but firstly, you've picked Rakan with it. Already, I think that's a little bit better. Secondly, Galio wasn't banned from them, so they pick it themselves. It's not going to be a Renekton, so you have that extra tank. And as far as I'm concerned, Hong Kong Attitude's team composition is decently well-rounded. They've got engaged. They've got Jarvan Galio. Already a very good engaged combo. I can't say LPL. I know exactly what that does. We see it all the time. So they're able to go forwards, they're able to engage. They've got Rakan to follow that up as well. And then you've got Rakan Galio as another combo that's going to be fantastic, and a big scare going up against the composition if you are Rampage.
Well, Rampage touted within their own region, of course. This is a team that over the course of the year, they've been together. They've played on the international stage at least one more time. We saw these guys at MSI. It's the same composition. And for Rampage representing Japan, a big deal for this team. Last year, it was all about detonation focus me, but they've been on top of the LGL ever since then in 2017. And we'll see if it's enough to take them to victory here as we load up onto Summoner's Rift up against Hong Kong Attitude.
A couple of very big runs to be made by both of these teams. Again, HKA have pulled off the 6th place to 1st place type of run, rather 3rd place to get here into the play-ins. And their opposition, Rampage, has gone from second fiddle to detonation focus me to being the first, and that has happened for 2 consecutive splits right now. So you'd have to say they are close to uncontested the best team in all of the LJL right now, and they are proving their worth on this stage if they're able to get the Game 1 victory against the Pool 1 seed.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of that Pool 1 seed, see Rampage trying for some shenanigans up top as the pause comes in. We'll see how it all unfolds in just a few more moments, but it is worth pointing out that Hong Kong Attitude, similar to the young generation, they wouldn't be here if it weren't for the fact that there's a little bit more of an expansion. We see a number 3 seed of the LMS region coming in, and maybe it wasn't a surprise for a lot of analysts considering how strong they were able to develop, because this is a team that they really did take their time. There was a lot of retooling around. We heard from Tabe earlier in the day that he kind of shook things up when he arrived on the scene and said, all right, guys, we need you to hit the solo queues, get yourselves up on the mechanic level, and we got the strategy as well to pair with that. And this is why this team gets so many props from the LMS analysts.
It's a super interesting thing for me as well to listen to what Tabe said specifically about playing solo queue, about being individually better, because that means coming into a tournament like this, I mean, frankly, they should just be better players if they're all high elo challenger now, and they can just beat the 1v1 against the emerging regions, and they should have that slight edge, because not only are they going to be individually better then, they'll be able to play that macro style just that bit more you would have to expect being from one of the major regions of the LMS. In this case, up against Rampage, from what we saw in the finals, their play was okay. It was something that impressed some people and didn't impress a lot of others, and that could work. It could be enough to keep up with HKA, but really, if they play to expectations, it shouldn't at all.
Yeah, I feel like that really does put the pressure on Rampage, because when you look at the relative strength of regions, how people interpret it, and what Hong Kong Attitude have been able to do within their own region, you can look at that, and it can be intimidating at times. I don't know if Rampage will really feel that. Obviously, this is a team that has had some international experience with this roster. I mentioned MSI a little earlier, and maybe they didn't have the greatest performance they would have liked, but sometimes you just shake off the nerves a little bit, you get back on the stage, and now they're at Worlds. Now they're at the big show, and this is their chance to prove themselves on the international stage. And it's got to be a little bit tense, though, of course, through the pause, and I'm getting my ear that slight mouse issue should be resolved pretty soon.
Absolutely. So hopefully we get back onto Summoner's Rift as quick as we can, but you're right, to bring it back to Rampage, they have felt what the stage is like. They have been here before, and they'll be able to do this again, and they should be comfortable. They had Rift Rivals even before the LJL finals, so they've been on stage enough to just be comfortable, and you can see that through game number 1's draft phase. They've picked Soraka. I mean, that does speak towards a confident side. If you call that an abstract strategy, it's not something that you'll often see as that Soraka pick. So ultimately, maybe it's because they're against the better team in this group for all intents and purposes of seedings in HKA, but maybe they genuinely believe this is a champion that is comfortable for Dara and they want to get him comfy, or it's just a cheese and they really want to throw that spanner in the works.
That's the thing, right? You don't really know when it's game 1 for these teams coming out playing something that everyone kind of tilts their head sideways. Maybe not. I'm not 100% sure, but Rampage have had a lot of question marks, all things considered, and I guess we'll finally get our answers for this team, and it almost puts the pressure back onto Hong Kong Attitude in that case. When you throw something a little bit odd their way, will they be able to handle it?
I mean, that is definitely going to be the case. The pressure's there for both of these teams. First and foremost, it's their first game that they're playing on the international stage between both of them, and then secondly, yes, as you mentioned, another reason to have some pressure.
Well, speaking of cheese, Rampage were the ones who were trying for the early invade, spotted, of course, by Riris. That means they'll just be able to throw down a couple of wards, and you can see GodKwai poking about. They didn't want to make anything happen, so instead, of course, it's just vision match for vision inside of either jungle.
And of course, now as we have the early game panning out, the ward was placed. That's all they needed, the red buff. they want to know where GodKwai is starting. We look past that just a little bit more as actually a lot of Xayah chance for some of the teams here.
Oh yeah, getting quite excited to kick things off here, of course.
But it's team composition for me that stands out for Rampage. They've gone towards and hard committed to the Ardent Sensor champion of the Soraka, but again, as I mentioned even during Champions League, the Soraka's utility on the silence is something that might mean the difference. Also, the global impact of the heal means that 2v2 skirmishes towards the 8-minute mark starts to change the tempo. We've also seen battle Sorakas, so specifically for Dara, we'll have to see which style he does play. But the rest of the comp around that Soraka, it's got a lot of crowd control. They've got a lot to complement what is a heal-intensive champion as well. So they were very much prepared for the pick, even pre-prepared through this draft.
Well, gotta wonder if that was kind of the plan all along, and maybe they had that in mind from the very beginning, and we'll see if they're able to enable YutoriMoyasi, but that's a lot of damage to kick things off. He's already had to pop his barrier.
And the full health of the barrier was used. I don't mind that he used it that early. He didn't use a potion to stay in lane just yet. He's counting on Soraka hitting level 2 and the Warlord's Bloodlust. So perhaps there was a world where he just holds on to level 2 and gets Soraka to heal it back up to full, but nope. Barrier's gone. Shows respect to the level 1 strength of Xayah and Rakan, and Hong Kong attitude showing exactly why that is a commanding 2v2.
And back in the mid, a couple of trades back and forth as well between Mission and Ramune. I think they said it right on the analyst desk. There's a lot of lanes to carry for Rampage, but Hong Kong attitude more than happy to take it to him. We'll definitely have to keep an eye on this mid and on the 2v2 in the bottom and see how it unfolds. I wouldn't be too surprised, in all honesty, to just see unassisted first bloods.
Jarvan now working his way towards the middle lane. Has not been seen just yet.
There it is. Here. GodKwai coming in with them double buffs, looking for Ramune, flashing forward. Flag, drag, auto attack, and it's going to be first blood for Mission.
A very good flash from GodKwai to get himself out just towards the end of that one. Finds his way in and picking the middle lane to gank from and the bottom side of mid lane. Even if they knew he started at red, it doesn't seem like Ramune was able to prevent this one from happening. Syndra does have a lot of presence in lane, but Ramune also steps up, steps forwards to get a last hit onto a minion, and that is well executed from the side, knowing the tendencies of the mid laner to go forwards.
Yeah. A little bit unafraid, not necessarily respecting where the jungler could be, so GodKwai helping get the first blood secured. Unified with the wave of minions. Down on the bottom, continuing to push in and pressure Dara and YutoriMoyasi. Well, Kaiwing is actually going for a roam up.
Yeah, he's on a mission. Looks like the Scry Absorb should be all there is, and that extra ward that'll go near the Raptors. Of course, he doesn't need to place it near red buff, but if he had, he would have found himself a Sejuani, but they're still pinging him, very much aware.
Definitely know. GodKwai, he might be looking to return to the scene of the crime. Remember, there's no flash
he's
on
gonna dodge that
once
as well.
again. Oh, no.
Oh, no,
Deja vu. Ramune, he's got to know something's up. Okay, and this time, he's going to be able to get the cleanse out all the same. He takes a heaping helping of damage before being able to walk away. GodKwai, oh man, fool me once for Ramune, but that's twice in a row, and he doesn't go down the second time.
But in all seriousness, you have to stress how good that was from HKA, because Rakan comes up, uses the scrying orb, actually shows exactly where the ward is, and instead of clearing the ward, GodKwai walks around it, knowing that he can skirt through what is the lack of vision there for the Rampage roster. So, I mean, it was smart, very much aware. They want to kill him. They want to at least win mid lane very hard for Mission, and they're doing the best they can to ensure that, knowing that there's going to be a ward in the bush, and they don't care. They have a control ward for that later.
Set things up together. Team touted for improving themselves at solo queue, but clearly the understanding of where to be, the right time, the macro sense, and the team play, it's also there. This is part of why we're seeing so many analysts talking about this Hong Kong Attitude Squad as possibly a favorite in the group.
And it's working across the whole Rift as well. You've got an equal top lane, but you're winning CS in the mid lane, compliments of the J4 ganks, and bottom lane doing very well.
Dancing in, they even interrupt the jump onto YutoriMoyasi. It's going to be him getting away. Of course, he does take a little extra damage from that ignite, and it might be round 2. He's got no flash available.
It means
they want to
go all
in.
Completely in control of our red side here. Just in the 2v2, there's going to have to be jungle presence sooner or later, but you can see the junglers on your screen right now. They've got each other to deal with. Yep. Oh, he stole it.
Wow. What a cheeky move by GodKwai.
Big flag.
Sometimes that's all you need. So Hong Kong Attitudes jungler definitely having a good game on the start of this. Now Riris and Evie trading out just a little bit more. And Not a whole lot of mana on either side, but of course with the tank battle, it's mostly wet noodles, but the junglers could get involved.
Yeah, neither of them really having mana touts. This is a super uninteresting 1v1 between them. And so your eyes always go towards, where are these junglers and can they impact that? But they both know that the other one was nearby, and it's just more vision placed by GodKwai to try and prevent the Sejuani from getting there. He then goes back to his Crux. You'd have to imagine a recall after that. It's the battle for 6 between them both. That's where they need to be to get more successful ganks off. And this will tick him to 6.
Yeah, should just be about a few more Krugs spawning up. And then we'll get the Cataclysm. I would not be too surprised to see GodKwai looking for a 3-peat down in the middle lane.
Why not, really?
Still no flash on Ramune.
Exactly. The summoner spells missing means the opportunity to engage is there, especially with the cleanse gone. Syndra can be the one to go forwards, where the flag drag can be dodged. If the Syndra stun hits, well, then it can't. And he's got the Cataclysm to lock them in.
Everybody getting in the party pit. Now, YutoriMoyasi, Dara, trying to play this one out fairly safely, but it's Hong Kong attitude vision, and that means they can go in, tag their way out. Remember, Rampage gave the birds away in the bottom lane.
You know, I could see the merit in what Dara was trying to do there as well with the Soraka. He still has to flash out, though, and that's just because the state of the 2v2 is very poor for them. But if Rakan goes in, uses his W, you silence him and then he can't dash back out. And it means that he has to be very careful with where and when he is using the spell. But I mean, so far, I wouldn't say that's mattered at all.
Well, it's definitely been a little quicker on the fingers, of course, and Dara not been able to get a whole lot done to stop him. And all the same, it's definitely a decent CS lead that's resulted from all that extra pressure down bottom Hong Kong attitude's been able to exert, but it's not massive. And remember, this Tristana is definitely going to be a pretty monster carry in her own right the later the game goes on.
Yeah, Tristana's always going to be a massive threat. We saw it in the last game. If they get to the 2-item, 3-item mark, well then Xayah versus Tristana in the role 1v1 is equal, but Trist has the natural range advantage that starts to turn the tides of that battle. It's not really there that we're going to be looking towards just yet, especially for Rampage. Mid lane is in damage control, bottom lane is just holding on and mostly damage control, because you can still see the damage coming across.
Over and over again, and now it was Mission's turn to actually steal a little bit of farm away from Tussle, grabbing a couple more of those Raptors. Level 7 to level 6, but that's not what we necessarily want to see right now as Mission. Oh, he's going to get pulled in by that shockwave. Not enough damage. Look at Riris, though. He's actually moved towards the middle.
Yeah.
Are they trying to set up a big play onto Ramune?
No, they're swapping lanes. So the Tristana and the Soraka disappeared. They've gone towards top lane. Xayah and Rakan have now walked up here as such, which means that Riris, who has no teleport, just kind of has to waddle on through the mid lane. There was perhaps a world where his ultimate might have accidentally been in the correct place at the correct time, but it was just the shockwave, just a bit of harass that goes down, nothing more. And it still means that Mission has control of the lane, especially because the shockwave's gone now.
All right, we swap things up. But it's still the same 2v2. YutoriMoyasi trying to get the clear off onto the minions and grab as much farm as he possibly can. Well, you see, this is where the junglers start getting involved. You talked about the battle to 6. Well, they're both on even now. And both of them, they have their ultimates and flashes. GodKwai moving in with Kaiwing. Let's see if they can set this play up. Unified trying his best to look tasty.
Unified is person Kaiwing can jump off, but he goes forwards himself.
All right, gets the charm out. Look for the Soraka first. Oh, he's killed the healer. And they pull back with Feathers with the Blade Storm. And now YutoriMoyasi trapped inside the pit. Tussle is here just way too late. And Kaiwing is able to secure that kill. Now Tussle finds himself without any friend.
Oh, no.
Under the tower they go, and it's Unified flashing forward. Kill number 2.
And GodKwai tanking for him all the while. So clean from Hong Kong. My God, this team, they have got that attitude. You're seeing it now being displayed.
Ooh, that puts them up 4 kills to 0 in this game, and that's a 2,500 gold lead. Hong Kong eSports about to extend that even further with the first tower knocked down. What a combination play there. Kaiwing, Unified, and GodKwai all making massive strides.
And you have to look at this again, not just the engage. Kaiwing, he's playing Rakan, very much going to be a reliable engage source. No way of countering that one if you're a Soraka. Unified early use of the ultimate as well to ensure the kill was there. He also wanted to lock down Yutori, but unfortunately it wasn't going to be where he needed it. And Unified barely even able to auto-attack because of the J4 ultimate, but still Tussle, that is at least 2 seconds worth of overextension, gets himself killed at the same time, joins his teammates in the death chamber. First turret followed, 4K gold lead, it's 10 minutes in the game. This feels like a Cloud9 game, Pyra.
Yeah, I think it might be. It was a little unfortunate for Rampage that Tussle just wasn't quite there in time. I don't know if it would have really made the difference, but maybe he's going to have to rename himself to Hustle if he wants to make moves faster. Rampage find themselves without a tower up top.
And with that turret gone, you'd expect perhaps the lane swap to be seen again from Unified and Kaiwing, but they really want that 2v2.
Yeah.
They want to continue to pressure that, and they don't go towards the bottom lane.
Well, they won the most important battle of all, after all, Rusty. The Ardent Sensor already completed. I mean, they've got gold to spare at this point.
That's true. They are infinitely stronger. In fact, they win the game until the Ardent Sensor's there from Rampage.
Ooh, early Executioner's Calling picked up to mitigate a little bit of that healing from the Soraka. I like the change-up.
That's very cheesy. They've even got the Ignite from Kaiwing. So now they can save the Ignite to be a battle summoner, as Evie does get out to base perfectly fine.
I was very close, actually, for just a second. Short window, and now it looks like Hong Kong eSports want to make the play. Oh, they've trapped YutoriMoyasi, forced to burn his flash, and Unified with some serious damage, but do they have enough to finish Tussle? They do, as a pair of teleports coming in. One will get canceled, and Evie, unfortunately, not able to get anything else done on that one, and it looks like we might be in for the Rift Herald. As Unified continue to push a few minions, the rest of his team will go and take away Shelly.
Riris, of course, cancelled his teleport at the last second too, so both top laners not having the summoner spell available means that this is a realistic objective where there shouldn't be much contesting at all from the side of Rampage. And once again, they make the play. Hong Kong Attitude go forwards. It's successful. The gold lead will start to grow even more.
Continually. And this is definitely looking not so good for Rampage here. Hong Kong Attitude showing why they looked so impressive in their gauntlet run all the way through to try and make themselves into Worlds.
I mean, 12 minutes might be too early to say this, Pyro, but I'm already feeling we're in perfect game territory with how this one has been kicking off. There's no Drakes, no turrets. They lane swapped early, so there isn't even a really low turret on Summoner's Rift. Everyone has control, and it doesn't feel like this is the kind of control that slows down anytime soon.
Yeah. Keep on building into a good old snowball. It's going to be hard for Rampage to try and find their way back into this one, but where's it going to come from? Who's going to need to step up? That Tristana will get big, but I feel like they're going to need more than that a lot sooner.
It's so hard to say in a game that it's at this state of the game where that comes from, right? Because, frankly, Sejuani should be able to get ganks off, or Maokai can teleport in, they can flank, but Sejuani gets a gank. Jarvan's already there in the first place. He's already there ahead of time. And so a lot of it just comes from placing that vision. You know, when a team's behind, how do you come back into the game? You pick an area of the map, you say that we control this area, and they can have the other 95%. And from this area, we can then maybe get a pick. And with the pick, we can expand that, get the control, maybe take an objective.
Seems like it's very difficult, though, when the only ones that are really isolated on that team are the biggest tanks. And now GodKwai turning Tussle back around once more. Looks like mid lane's on the menu. That's not a lot of health left on the tower. Ramune is going to try to threaten with the ball, but Mission says, okay, yeah, I can play with Spheres too.
It is our superior. It looks like they might just get this one. Shockwave to deter.
I don't know how much deterrent it's going to be. That Ice Bowl a little bit heavier, but GodKwai is able to flag and drag away to safety. The rest of Hong Kong eSports all here. Or Hong Kong Attitude, I should say.
Yeah, and ultimately he'll take that health trade. You lose a bit of your health, you can get a mid lane outer turret. That's definitely valuable. He's got the red buff as well, so health regeneration is going to be a very much evident factor for this Jarvan. It means that he doesn't have to go back to base if he wants. He can stay around for a prolonged period of time, and maybe Rampage expect him to recall, not realizing there was a red buff there. We shall see.
Pretty much has been the continuous 4v4 though, and now you can see HKA really taking it all into full swing with 4 members up towards the top side to try and siege in this inner turret.
There's the Herald.
There we go, getting popped, eye crushed, GodKwai. And they're gonna have the 5th man.
And Rampage are not really in position to deal with this one. Teleports are up, but Maokai and Galio are bopping each other around.
They nearly killed the tower without the Rift Herald.
Yeah, Rampage is showing a lot of respect. They've said the inner turret's not really a place they want to defend. They were primarily looking towards their base structures to prevent them from going down. They drew the line, and they said, all right, maybe we can't defend inners.
But I mean, this is just got to be so frustrating for Rampage, losing so much so fast. 5 kills to 0, 3 towers, all of them just about on the top side except that mid one. And they haven't even needed Riris on the Hong Kong Attitude side. He's been playing his own minigame down bot up with Evie.
I'm sure he's having so much fun just hitting a Maokai as a Galio, and I'm sure Evie feels the exact same way.
Top Lane Island is a wonderful place, even if it happens to be in bot lane, Rusty. I've seen several of these types of games.
To each their own, mate, but I definitely look at that matchup and say that that is mostly just boring and horrifying to have to play it yourself.
Well, they've got the teleport, so maybe they'll decide to party with the rest of the team sooner rather than later.
I would say right now, though, the way that Galio has assigned himself, it's exact oppositely going to be the case. There is a world where maybe he is the one person who dies on this side because he's caught out of position. But HKA have gone for the Cloud Drake, simultaneously going for the bottom lane outer turret, and there's no way for Rampage to contest either of these things, as they were just locked inside their own base and can barely place vision outside of that area. You can look at the minimap right now and you can see that they're only just stretching out, and it's at the baseline of the inner turrets. They're not going any further.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for them to try and grab any territory back. You talked about, you know, let's sacrifice most of the map and find a place you can get a pick. Even if you get the Galio, so what? It seems like Hong Kong Attitude are doing so much. They're even multitasking. The Syndra was killing the Scuttle Crab at the same time as killing the Dragon when you throw one at the other.
The Scuttle Crab is now a weapon, as Syndra has decided, as it does damage. So they're going to be able to, yeah, multitask, as you mentioned. There is one ward that should be noted for the Maokai to use, and it's at the bottom river for Rampage. If they choose, that is the one teleport ward that they've got. There's not a lot of time left on that ward, though.
There's not a lot of time left, it seems, for Rampage. I mean, we're only 16.5 minutes in, but you mentioned the echoes of the perfect game. It might very well happen the rate things are going. Tussle does manage to find GodKwai and Kaiwing, a little bit of damage dealt onto the Jarvan, but he's able to shrug most of it off, and Unified still putting in work down on the bottom side, slowly building that mini wave. But YutoriMoyasi is here. Push him back, and of course, with Ardent Sensor on Dara as well, they're going to have the equal amount of empowerment, but there's just such a big goal differential. So many towers. Ramune dodging out at Scout of the Week.
He's well out of position.
Oh dear, this is not going to end too well. A hero's entrance comes in for Riris, and all of a sudden, we finally get that 5v5 in Hong Kong Attitude. Clear away the minions. Nothing left to push for now.
Yeah, just like that, Riris groups up with the team. I like that HKA have gone from the bottom lane to the mid lane. They're pivoting, they're using the jungle as that pivot point. But most importantly, when they are rotating, they've got the vision there set up. First, they're walking through areas where they have vision, not walking blindly into where Rampage have vision, and so they're not going to make any unnecessary mistakes. And when they do walk into places with that vision, it's GodKwai, and it's got Kaiwing with him to protect him. And so the chance of the J4, who is super tanky right now and ahead, dying, very low.
Yeah. It's difficult for Rampage to find any openings. I mean, we're starting to see that similarity to what was last game with just not taking any unnecessary risk. The team that's ahead, playing it out smart, not giving an opportunity to the opponents. And Hong Kong Attitude even starting to take away the jungle. Everything Rampage losing out on here as the red buff should fall pretty quickly to GodKwai. Or maybe Mission wants to take it, who knows? Now smite it down.
All about that health regeneration at this stage of the game when you're stealing red buffs. You talk to your Xayah and you say, you know what, red buff's available on the other side of the map, do not yell at me.
You could take ours, that's fine. Plenty of red buff to go around. Dara, YutoriMoyasi trying continually to just push these minion waves back, but it seems like they're in full defensive mode, just slowly ceding more territory, slowly trying to fight back. That desperate fight, it seems like it has to happen, but you know, that ward you were talking about earlier doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, they haven't been snowballing any further, Hong Kong Attitude, but they haven't been losing anything. They've been slowly gaining ground. It hasn't been an amount that has been a leap forward, it's those baby steps. But these baby steps on turret after turret eventually mean the turret falls. Just like that, the game can end in one more push, because that's where we are, on the map. Relative to Rampage, they need to win at least 3 team fights, or they can wait for a Baron opportunity, which it feels like ultimately that's where the Hong Kong Attitude team are looking towards.
Yeah, well, there's a minute before that becomes a realistic possibility, but such a massive goal differential, 7,000 or so in favor of Hong Kong Attitude, and that's 4 towers, 5 kills. And just a whole lot of map control.
There's just so much patience and respect from both of these teams, though. Knowing that the vision game is ultimately how they want to win this one out, have the better macro, just be the better team. But Rampage as a roster have said, okay, we're losing. We will lose everything that we have to lose that isn't our Nexus or our base. Even in this case, the inhibitors is where they've drawn that line. And said, we're not going to lose those. However, with the respect that HKA are showing, they don't need to lose those. It's just a ward battle.
Yeah. Well, they're going to need to rally behind the Tristana, and of course the secondary carry of the Orianna, but it's still a ways away. I mean, we're only looking at an item and a half each right now. The Merlonomicon for the Ori, and still not completed the Infinity Edge on the Tristana since he had to go for the Static Shiv first.
Yeah, when you're looking at the item build, you'd still say very strong though, all things considered, just by having the Static Shiv for wave clear. But with the Infinity Edge, obviously wanting that bit of extra team fighting is a whiles away from any kind of strength, even just compared to Unified. Massively behind.
Yeah, well, we've seen Tristanas be able to wreck towers, but the problem right now for YutoriMoyasi is he can't really get to any towers.
I mean, the
There's
gold
nowhere
difference
safe to go.
between them is an entire Infinity Edge, basically, between AD carries. So as far as I'm concerned, yeah, maybe he can't farm, but he's been sitting bottom lane just getting caution pinged constantly as Baron has spawned. Baron being done.
All right, well, Tussle getting healed up, going back in for round number 2. He would need a miracle steal, but Hong Kong Attitude not going to give him the opportunity. Shockwave does bring in Kaiwing. He's able to make his escape, and a hero's entrance comes in as Riris tags his way forward. Tussle narrowly escaping, Riris trying for the shield of Durand, and it just deters Rampage any further. They have not lost a man just yet. And Evie trying to push them back, and Riris tanking on the front line. Down goes Evie. It's a 1 for none. Hong Kong Attitude picking up their 6th kill of the game. Not feeling like they can take out the Baron just yet.
No, missing a lot of health, so ultimately I feel like that's just where it's going to subside, but they stay around. Rampage.
Oh no, they caught Dara and deleted him. Unified, he took some damage for that one, but at the end of the day, they grabbed themselves the healer on the side of Rampage, and now Hong Kong Attitude, they feel that it's pretty easy for them to take out the Baron this time around.
Yeah, certainly. Kaiwing has a lot of shields. Riris is very tanky, and they got the extra kill. So Evie dies, Dara dies, and because Dara's dead, he's not a teleporting member on the team. That's it. Clean Baron to be secured by them. Of course, we get to watch this again. Tussle, he meets Mission, and Mission has cleanse, so he's not afraid of the Sejuani engaging on him by any means. But because Kaiwing misses, really good Sejuani ultimate to deter that. However, he lives. So the game continues, and stun after stun from the Syndra connects. Evie thinks he has a flank. Riris doesn't want to flash forwards again once because of the cleanse on the Orianna. But what started as a flank now becomes I am flanked, and Riris just zones.
Yep. Keep back all the damage dealers. There's not a whole lot Rampage can do to try to turn that fight, so Evie just ends up getting cut down to size. And of course, the baits.
I mean, you call this blind, but it's assumed as well. There's nowhere else that he's going to be if he wants to place wards and thinks we're doing Baron, so I like the play out of Mission.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for Dara on that Star Guardian Soraka, pretty representative of your first attempt at invasion mode.
Certainly is.
All
so
right.
now, with the Baron buff, we just saw the Drake being taken. You're looking at the rest of the map to be theirs, honestly, with the Baron. We said earlier at like 15 minutes, this is that point in the game where they can open the map up. Before that, it seems like they were too hesitant to make the play.
Yeah. Well, they're a lot faster, too. I mean, on top of the Baron buff, they've also been quietly amassing the Cloud Drake, so they got a little bit extra movement speed to be able to try and out-rotate this Rampage team. And of course, there's not a whole lot of places Rampage can go. They're pretty locked into their base right about now. 23 minutes on the clock, and that perfect game still in the sights of Hong Kong Attitude. We'll see if they're able to secure it up. Looking down towards the bottom, that would be the last tower outside the base available. It should be a pretty easy take.
It should be. Of course, I don't think there's any expectations of Rampage defending this turret. They'll stick to their inhibitors now. They've got the Orianna shockwave that you call a threat, but then you look at the items and you're like, well, it's not really that threatening at all.
Yeah.
It's like drawing teeth on a cardboard box and saying it bites.
Well, that is a metaphor I didn't expect to hear today.
I didn't expect to say that. I don't know where
It's
it came from.
It's very apt, though. I'll give you that. And unfortunately, they're dealing with big pair of shears cutting through these towers. Hong Kong Attitude moving forward. That's a big 3-man stun, and Dara already being taken fairly low.
I mean, the Maokai ultimate's gone, though, so now the opportunities to engage just get that little bit better. Every single time Unified steps up, Ramune has to expend a bunch of mana to clear these waves and prevent him from auto-attacking. But we're one wave away. Syndra's got the 3 spheres down, ready to stun anyone who walks up. You'd say the turret's about to drop.
But is this where Rampage decide to make the stand? They can either lose it or at least live to fight another day. Instead, they cede ground, letting Hong Kong Attitude inside the base. Riris waiting around the side. He wasn't going to be able to break in on his own, but the rest of the team was able to do the job. That's one inhibitor already down without that much of a fight.
You know, they're very conscious of the fact that they are behind here, but eventually you have to do something. You're at a point that is past desperation. It's a 14k gold lead, and they're still not fighting.
How about that for some Hong Kong Attitude, and GodKwai hopping in for the dunk to get this fight started off right. Ramune down, followed by Evie. GodKwai gets knocked back, but it doesn't mean a damn thing. Down goes Tussle. That's the double kill for the Hong Kong Attitude jungler. And they are looking to try and close this one out. It is only the bot lane remaining.
Yeah, they want to end the game right now, Pyro. It looks like it's going to be the perfect game.
Riris is going to back and teleport right on top of it. They are not giving a chance for Rampage to get any anything. Down goes Dara. Yutari, no, it's going to be unified.
He would.
He gives them the kill. No perfect game for Hong Kong Attitude, but it doesn't matter. As YutoriMoyasi goes back in, it's going to be the ace. 12-1 is the kills, 9-0 is the towers, and down goes the Nexus. Hong Kong Attitude making a big statement in game number 1 to close things out.
And welcome to Worlds, Rampage. Meet your maker.
Meet they did. Not a whole lot of time to greet, though. That one ended in 25.5 minutes, so Hong Kong Attitude, well, they're certainly looking good going into their following games, and I think their logo is very appropriate for what they just did, styling on Rampage.
There's certainly a lot of attitude in the way they were playing, but most importantly, there was a lot of control, a lot of reservations, and a lot of clean macro play coming out of the side. Maybe the expectations for them being the third representative of the LMS weren't all that high. All we've ever known is Flash Wolves and AHQ. Well, there's a third team in town, and based off this game alone, my God, do they look good.
Oh, yeah. We even heard from some analysts saying that they might even be better than the likes of AHQ, and it's hard to believe that when you look at a team that, you know, kind of just edges into their qualifiers for Worlds and it doesn't make playoffs either split, but clearly these guys were in the hyperbolic time chamber that is solo queue in the LMS.
You heard it already,
2-5
to 5-2, right? That hyperbolic time chamber, it might be solo queue, it might be a million other things, but it was also the roster changes, the fact that they've added 2 new players and they've looked so fantastic, swapping it up, different coaches, all of these things, and I mean, it's just come together in this perfect moment.
Yeah. Worked out well for them. Now, there's a lot of Worlds still to go for this team, but for Hong Kong Attitude, man, I mean, you can't get much better start to Worlds than that. Maybe Unified should have fed on Fountain, but other than that, great job.
I don't think he knew it was a perfect game either. He's just sacrificed
or
himself.
Didn't care.
He's going to go backstage and probably get blasted by everybody to ever exist. He may not do that again.
Well, maybe not, but I don't know if they're going to be able to repeat that kind of game. I'd love to see it, absolutely. What a fantastic performance.
Yeah, it was a very good performance from them.
All right, now to hear more about that almost perfect game, let's send it over to Dracos and the analysts.
As predicted,
Okay.
HKA with a convincing...
No. You're going to take a back seat because premier analyst Mark Z has some opinions to share.
Oh, God, that felt good, didn't it?
It was pretty much a perfect game up until the last minute. It was a stomping right how I said it was going to be. That bot lane play that instantly blew the game open around 10 minutes. Just better drafting all around, better team play. I think I heard that Rampage only did 730 damage to turrets. I don't know if they got past River. It felt pretty good to watch you know what's going to happen.
I'm sorry, I have to correct you. You did get one thing off about the stat. It was actually 740 damage.
Oh, 40. They got 10 more than I anticipated. That's not too bad.
All right, but let's bring up that first replay. Let's talk a little bit about this dominant. This one, of course, brought to you by Acer Predator, and definitely looking like a Predator and Prey scenario here.
Really smart. I mean, they forced the Soraka flash earlier on. You go for the repeat gank. Jarvan's very capable of following up. They get that first kill, and then Rampage make the mistake of trying to fight this instead of just cut their losses. Tussle could have got out long ago, and then finally he realized he's getting chunked out. Leads to a 3-0, and the game's basically over from here just based off the draft and how early game focus Hong Kong Attitude went.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that draft because
it was awful. It was so bad. Why would you go for Soraka? This doesn't make any sense.
Okay, but tell me, why doesn't this make sense? Because obviously Soraka can have her uses, but is this what you expect when you look at how Rampage won a draft?
Okay, so like the thing is, what Rampage is going for is like, we're gonna scale up. We've got really good late game team fighting. Soraka, the one value that she does have is that if she just sits at the back of the fight and she just keeps healing the front line, she becomes, you know, you can't kill anyone. But Xayah, Rakan, very well known for diving. Jarvan, also pretty well known for diving. Chuck a Galio on top of that. Like, this stuff is really good at diving the backline. And on top of that, Soraka's never getting out of the laning phase anyway because it's Xayah Rakan. Like, it makes no sense. I don't know why they
all right. I will extend an olive branch that, like, this was a terrible draft. They gave HKA a ton of power picks and then gave themselves picks that do bad into what they're giving up. But the thing is, it's Rampage, and it's the LJL. They do bad drafts all the time. Like, you should know this is coming.
Oh, come on. You can't sell it like that because you may call it a bad draft, but ultimately picks like Heimerdinger, less conventional picks, do work for them. But maybe this is a struggle to adapt to a different meta on the world.
I don't think so. This is as meta as a team comp as you can give up. I think Rampage has struggled at various points in their own domestic region with draft phase. So, yeah, it is a terrible draft, and I'm sorry that this is the game that they chose to bust it out. But, like, you can expect some stuff like this.
All right, so moving forward, let's talk about Hong Kong Attitude, dominant performance. They can be proud of themselves. We can see that they might be a dominant team at the top of the group, as has been the standard for the Pool 1 seeds. But let's talk a little bit about Rampage. What has to change here? Because ultimately, you know, because of the predictions, we can like laugh and have a good time as much as we want, or at least Mark Z can. But realistically, if this team wants to make it out, next steps are definitely in order.
Yes, so they really need to fix their draft, and they also really need to realize that junglers are a lot more active in the early game at Worlds than they are domestically, because just generally in the LGL, you do not have aggressive junglers. You do not have people that get in your face prior to the 10-minute mark. And we saw that, I believe it was some ridiculous goal deficit at just the 10-minute mark alone. It's the fact that they can't afford to give up this much early pressure. They need to recognize that we need to draft stronger laners. We need to be setting up better earlier vision. We can't afford to be camped in the mid lane. And like just a lot of things around the draft specifically really need to shift.
I think it's the kind of thing too where you saw what happened in Group B, where one got demolished by Cloud9 and Direwolves in day one, and they bounced back just fine. And so it's a very similar thing here where potentially, yes, this game looked horrible. They almost got perfect game. These things are issues. Rampage can't find a way back into this group.
But as well, just to like add praise onto HKA, you know, because I definitely undersell them, but one of the big things that they praised themselves for was they utilized strong laners effectively. And I think that what we saw in this game is when you give them strong laners, they for sure know what to do with it. And I feel like that going up against Fenerbahce, 1907 Fenerbahce later on, I think that's something that they need to take away from them because otherwise this looks like a very scary team.
When we look at this though, coming in as Pool 1 seeds, we've seen a lot of teams just be stronger mechanically in the laning phase. We've also seen WE on the opposite side play kind of a more reserve style, come back at a later game. Do we think that Hong Kong Attitude is just going to be that #1 seed that comes in and just outclasses teams on an individual level?
So I saw some really good stuff in terms of the draft. We can go over that, but like we said already, but they did a lot of smart stuff with the ganks and how they play that out. Things like detecting the ward and then pathing around it as opposed to just clearing it. Stuff like that, so you give artificial security. A flash is blown in the bot lane on an immobile champion. Go down there and punish that. It's not just that like, oh, our draft is face roll, which it was, but the execution was also very intelligent.
It was. I really think that HKA did play extremely well in this game, and now they're going to be going up against 1907 Fenerbahce later, but I think that the difference will be is that the representatives from Turkey are much better at utilizing strong laners and early game. So I think we're going to have a lot more action in the early game later.
All right, final question, Vetti's going to put you on the spot one last time. Do you still have faith in Rampage after
Never again. Never again. I'm not doing that again.
I'm sticking with HKA #1. I'll double down on that.
All right, you're doubling down. Seems like a safe bet at this point. Vettis, I'm sad to see you sell them out after just one game.
Yep.
But up next, we've got a clash between Fnatic and Chaos Latin Gaming. But before that, Fish is standing by for an interview with Hong Kong's Attitude's Carry in the bottom lane.
Hey guys, I'm here with Unified, the AD carry from Hong Kong Attitude after a very dominant performance over Rampage in the first match. So close to a perfect game, but damn it, YutoriMoyasi knocked you back into the fountain, but it's still a really good performance. How'd you feel after that game?
首先恭喜你们获得刚刚那一场比赛胜利。那你差一点点就完胜了，就是他们对面Moyasi把你推到猪塔里面。那你对于刚刚那场比赛有什么感想呢？
还蛮惊讶的，因为他们放我们萨亚跟月空。 因为我们对这个组合很熟悉，对。
I was pretty surprised because they actually gave us Xayah and Rakan, and it's a comp that we're really familiar with. So we were surprised that they actually gave us that comp.
Well, it definitely worked out for you guys. We spoke to Tabe earlier. He was very vocal about how you've, moved into more of a solo queue mentality since he's joined as your coach. However, this is the World Championship, and coming into this game, you definitely had some sort of strategy to go up against Rampage. What was that, and can you tell us a little bit more about your game plan going into Game 1?
赛前有稍微跟他北聊了一下，那他加入团队的时候，他主要是针对 solo queue 的部分去做准备。那进到世界赛，对于对上 Rampage， 你们有做哪些战略上的计划吗？
其实我们实力上应该是比他们强的，然后我们只要小心他们一些比较特别的想法吧，就是一等的时候插好眼就好了，其他都应该赢。
I think overall we're a stronger team than them, but we have to watch out for the different situations that come up. So we warded really well during level 1, and I think that was it.
Yeah, and that's a really unique picks like the Soraka that came out today. Finally, you're up against 1907 next, but I really want to talk about this group you're in. How confident you are going up against both 1907 as well as Rampage.
想要稍微问你一下，就是接下来你们要对上 FB， 那你们在这个 D 组里面，你觉得？ 打进下一个阶段的信心有多大？
还蛮有信心的。而且我们对那个 FB 的实力其实还不了解，所以我们有点害怕。对。
We're pretty confident. We're still not so sure about the strength of FB, so we're kind of afraid, but we're confident that we can make it into the next stage.
Well, best of luck later on. We're going to send into a very quick break. We'll be back with more League of Legends action up next.